Overbound here. This week I'm going to show you how to take this metal platform we previously made and we're going to make curved versions of it. In the past I've shown you how to create curved versions of grass using the Photoshop warp tools, and that works pretty well for grass, but it doesn't work on these more detailed platforms. So we're going to have to do it by hand, but I do have some tools and techniques I want to show you here to do it quicker. So let's go ahead and get started. We want to create a circular selection that's 256 pixels by 256 pixels. That's a power of 2 and it'll be a good size for our curve. So I'm going to go ahead and select the Marquee Tool, the Elliptical Marquee Tool over here on the left. It's the second option on your tool panel, and sometimes you have to hold down and get this little menu out to get the Elliptical Marquee Tool because the rectangular is default. So we'll go ahead and select our Elliptical Marquee Tool. And I have my grid set up here, so there's a major grid line every 64 pixels. So if I get exactly, if the edges of my circle touch the edge of 4 of these boxes, that will be exactly 256 by 256 pixels. If you have trouble with measuring, I encourage you to go back and look at my grids and measuring video. There's a lot of useful information there in that video about measuring pixels. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Alt and Shift down and create a 256 pixel by 256 pixel area. There, perfect. We want to take our selection and add a border 1 pixel inside of the current circle. To do this, Photoshop has a tool. It's under Select, Modify, Border, and we'll just set it 1 pixel thick. We'll hit OK. If we zoom in here, we can see it made a 1 pixel border so that we can color this 1 pixel thick circle outline. Let's go ahead and do that by clicking inside of the circle with our paint bucket tool. Now you can see there's a problem. It changed colors outside the selection. What's happening here is this is not a hard selection. Photoshop is coloring these outside pixels by half their by half the color value. So you're getting a blend of the background color and the foreground color. In order to avoid this, it's kind of a cumbersome process because there's no just turn off soft edges for this. And so what I've done is I've created a Photoshop action, which is a series of steps I do to this border to make it a hard edge. And it's kind of complicated and it's more than I want to get into in this video, but I'm going to leave the link for the action in the description for the video, and then you'll be able to download that action and load it into Photoshop, and you can use my action to do this tutorial with me. Let's undo our yellow paint and use my action to get the right effect. So we'll go ahead here in the menu, undo our color and our border, and we'll go ahead and load my action. If you don't see the action panel, it's under Window, Actions. And you can see it'll pop up here. If you need to load my action that you've downloaded from the video description, go ahead and drop this little menu down here on the right and look for Load Action. This will bring up a menu or a browser window that you can use to navigate to the action and load it. Once you've done that, you can see it right here in the menu. It'll say 1 pixel border. If I go ahead and just hit play, I can see that I've created a 1 pixel border. And if I then fill that in with the color, it created a hard edge, just what I wanted. So now all we have to do is we have to line up our art next to this and fill in the colors as we go. We need a smaller circular selection to get started on our upper platform. So let's go ahead and select our Ellipse Marquee Tool. And then if you have your larger circle on the 256 by 256 grid, you should have a major grid line intersecting the center of your larger circle. And I'm going to hold Alt and Shift down while I'm making this selection so that it comes out from the center. and I'm going to drag it all the way down until I hit that bottom blue pixel of the top steel platform, and then I'll let go. You can see in here it's perfect. So now all we have to do is do the same thing again that we did on the bottom. We'll go ahead, and we've already got our selection, so we'll just hit play. I'll just start filling this in. Magic wand tool. I'm just gonna quick do this. Whoops. I'll do that. Just takes a minute. It's a few steps, but it's way better than doing it by hand. Okay, there we go. If we zoom out, perfect. So let's grab the hatching and get this finished. Come down here, find the hatching, and there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could take the individual hatching on a layer by itself and come up here and position them manually inside of your blue ramp, and that kind of works. It would require more tweaking, but in this case I think I'm going to go back and use the warp tools to just warp the X's and leave the rest of the shape as is. So I need to create a selection that is a pattern of 256 by 256 of these hatchings. There we go. I know that 4 squares for the major grid lines is 256 by 256, so that will work nicely. And I will then select the hatchings and right click with my Marquee Tool selected and go to Free Transform. And then I will hit Warp. And I will select Arch from this menu and set the bend to 100%. Right click again on the selection, go back to Scale, and we'll scale this into position. That looks pretty good right there. I'm just going to hit enter. Whoops. There we go. Now we just need to flip it around by selecting it, making a copy by holding Control and Alt at the same time. Free transform. Set the height to -100. Hit enter. And then drag that down into position. I believe we're going to have just a couple of lines to fill in here. You can, of course, adjust this since it's on its own layer. So I'm going to adjust the top portion down 1 pixel and the bottom portion up 1 pixel to fill in that little gap. Still 2 pixels there. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill those in myself. That'll work nicely. That side doesn't have it. And you know, there is a little bit of difference between the sides. So you can delete half of it and then flip it around as well. And that'll get you a more uniform look. So we free transformed, and then we just set the width to -100 to mirror the shape and snap it into position. Okay, there we go. Turn off the grid here. We could clean this up a little bit. You can see the warp effect added a bunch of little pixels that are just kind of poking out there. These would be good things to go back and erase, but it would be pretty boring to watch me do all that. So that's something you can take care of on your own. Keep in mind that this shape is really just 1/4 of the entire shape, so you could really just take a quarter of this thing, clean it up, copy the entire layer here, or the entire shape there, clean it up, and then flip it or mirror it. to reduce your workload. And then you could easily have a loop that way with a more uniform look. This is really all I wanted to show this week. I want you guys to keep in mind that you can use this technique for slopes too. You might have a little bit more trouble with the X's, but the drawing of the blue platforms and things, that'll work exactly the same. You can draw out a shape, and as long as you can get a selection of that shape, you can use my 1-pixel border tool and use it to speed up your workflow in making these sort of platforms and things. If you guys enjoy these videos, I really appreciate it if you like them. And subscribe to my channel, helps out a ton. I'm sitting right at 500 subscribers, which is a big success for me, so I want to thank everybody that subscribed for that. And I also want to remind you, you can check out my Sonic fan game, Sonic Time Twisted, which I'm hoping to get out at the start of 2016. You can play the demo now, and I'll have the full release around that time. Thanks for watching. Overbound out.